Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Oh, we're gonna get right back into the F550 again. Gonna pull that number 8 injector out. See if can see anything out of the ordinary. Well, normally when you're pulling injectors out on a 7.3 power stroke, you want to take out, there's two plugs, one right here and one right back here. That drains this oil log. That's where the high pressure oil sits. But today, I'm just taking the one out. So I'm gonna pop it out and I'm gonna stick another injector in its place. Hopefully with the thicker oil, not too much will drop down into the cylinder. And then we can get that oil out afterwards. There's always gonna be some oil getting into the cylinder. You just don't want it all in there. So take your ratchet with your 8mm. You take out this bottom bolt right here. So then we just go and pop that one out and we jam in our stand-in. And that should keep any oil from leaking as we work on our injector. There it is, guys. Let's go take it over to the bench. Got the injector in the vise here. We're going to be taking apart a lot of small pieces here. Just a quick rundown on the injector here. This port right here is the oil return that shoots the oil back into the valve cover. Right here's your high pressure oil, that's where it goes in. This is a solenoid. There's an armature inside there that opens and closes a poppet valve that allows the high pressure oil in. There's a piston in here that pushes on another piston. Fuel goes in here. It pushes on the fuel piston, creating the 7-to-1 pressure ratio required for injection out the tip. So we're going to want to get this copper washer off. Be very gentle that you don't mar anything up. And I'll be cleaning all these parts thoroughly before I reinstall it. This is a tool I made, a good 10 years ago or more. Just fits right in the hole here, like a spanner wrench. This nut is threaded on, your standard direction of threads. Righty tighty, lefty loosey. And you're going to want to kind of hold down on this because there's a little bit of spring pressure in there, and there's a lot of small parts you don't want flying all over the place. Now there's a lot of small parts in here. Got to be very careful with. Slide that straight off. The nozzle and seat, needle, not for sure what the correct term is for it. There's a really small check ball in here. Now this here is what actually does the pressurizing of the fuel. And sometimes this can get sticky. Feels pretty good though. And dowel pins. We have the intensifier piston. Oil pushes on this, and that pushes on that. Gives you on the 7.3 power stroke, they claim a 7-to-1 ratio. So like one PSI here would equal like 7 PSI there. One thing to look at on this nozzle are the tiny little holes in the tip. You should be able to take a light and see through the holes. You can just see this one. You want to make sure they're all clear. This one, only about 2 of them were clear when I first pulled it apart. So you want to go and clean that up with solvent and compressed air, make sure you can see through them all real good. And then as far as the rest of these parts go, just make sure there's absolutely clean as possible. You don't want any kind of garbage getting in here at all. And make sure everything moves good, all passages are cleared out. Well, I went and cleaned everything up real good. So now I can reassemble this. I'm gonna oil down everything with, in this case, some WD. So there is a fair amount of pressure on this spring. So when you're putting everything back together, you want to hold that down. Otherwise you can damage parts. And you want to make sure everything goes together nice and easy, or you can damage parts. The check ball just fell in my hand. You got to be very careful with that. When it's together properly, it shouldn't go anywhere. But I just slid these plates just wrong, and it fell out into my hand, luckily. This side can come apart also. Here's what that looks like. It's just an electromagnet. And this is the armature. That takes a special socket. I don't remember where I got this from. It's probably about time for a new one. It's seen a few injectors. This is the poppet. That is what allows oil to flow into the intensifier piston. This is a hold down clamp, and this is your oil spout. It directs the oil as it sprays out downwards so it doesn't make a mess underneath the valve cover. Not a whole lot to see in there. Oil passages. Get this stuff cleaned up and check it out, reassemble it. There's a better view what that looks like. There is a specific clearance on these parts here. I don't recall what they are off the top of my head. So there isn't very many parts that you can actually get for these and work on your own. One might be this solenoid. I know you can get O-rings for sure. You can get them at a Ford dealership or a Navistar International truck dealership. Well, you can also get the copper rings. Navistar, on their 6-cylinder trucks, they may have a stainless steel one. That's basically the guts of one of these. Before we leave the bench here, this is my standard tool, and this is my tool I made for when these things really don't want to come apart. So it will actually drop on here, and each one of these bolts will screw in to them holes and you're gonna get it apart. There's no doubt about it with this one. Because I've actually had some quite stubborn ones with this one where I've bent that off or I've marred up the holes. This one doesn't hurt anything. Now with our injector all lubed up, we can pull out that old one and shove in the new one. Make sure you got your clamp in the right spot. Just give it a couple taps of the dead blow. Don't have to get real crazy with it, but got to make sure it's seated in there. And we put our bolts in. This is not that big of a bolt, so you don't have to go all wild on it. I like to get it snugged up and then go tap it a little more. Make sure it's seated good and then snug it up a little more. Should be good. So we're gonna get that oil out of the cylinder. So now that we have the oil out of the cylinder, we can put our glow plugs back in. I tested these all, and they all tested good. They are factory style glow plugs. The 10mm monster almost got me. Somehow this thing fell down on the frame rail. I can't explain it. This whole thing is just laying down there. Now we can stick the valve cover harness back on. You want to make sure when you put this harness on, you get every connector connected good. Double check, triple check, whatever it takes. Make sure they're all on there good. It's pretty easy to miss a glow plug or an injector. Make sure you're not going to pinch any wires in the valve cover also. Now I'm going to go and hook this back up. That way we can run it with the valve cover off and make sure everything is got oil flowing. we do have oil flowing on all the injectors. So I'll go get the rest of that put back together. And then I'll get the truck out of the shop and take it for a drive, let it do its thing, scan it again, see if it took care of it. Well, join me next time, guys. See what we got going on. Take care and God bless. It does kind of make a mess when you run it like this.
You want to run them?